Hello students, welcome to the class. This is the second video of the lesson The Cop and the Anthem. In the previous video we have seen the part 1 in which we have learned that Soapy, who was a jobless and homeless man, was trying to get arrested because he wanted to spend his winter days 3 months on the Blackwell's Island in the prison, and for that reason he has to break law, then only he could get arrested. So his first attempt was failed. Now the next thing, Soapy turned off Broadway. It seemed that this most easy way to the island was not to be his. He must think of some other way of getting there. So earlier he thought that going in a restaurant and eating dinner and then saying that I don't have the money, that was the easiest way to get arrested. But he failed in that. So he thought now he must have to find out or think of some other way to get arrested. At a corner of 6th Avenue was a shop with a white glass window bright with electric lights. 6th Avenue is also a place. Soapy picked up a big stone and threw it through the glass. People came running around the corner. A cop was the first among them. Soapy stood still and he smiled when he saw the cop. So, Soapy, what he did, he picked up a big stone and he threw it on the glass, and the glass was broken. A cop reached, but he did not think that Soapy had done it. He asked the question, "Where is the man that did that?" asked the cop. The cop asked the question to Soapy only. "Don't you think that I might have done it?" said Soapy. And Soapy said to him, "Don't you think that I have done this?" He was friendly and happy. What he wanted was coming towards him, and Soapy was thinking that what he wanted to get arrested was coming towards him. But the cop's mind would not consider Soapy. But the cop didn't think that Soapy had done that crime, because men who break windows do not stop there to talk to cops. And what Soapy was doing? Soapy was talking to the cop with a smile. They ran away as fast as they can. The cop saw a man further along the street running. He ran after him, and Soapy, sick at heart, walked slowly away. He had failed 2 times, so his second attempt was also in vain. He didn't get arrested. Across the street was another restaurant. It was not so fine as the one on Broadway. The people who went there were not so rich. Its food was not so good. Into this, Soapy took his old shoes and his torn clothes, and no one stopped him. He sat down at a table and was soon eating a big dinner. So, at that street, he found another restaurant, which was not a five-star hotel, but it was an ordinary restaurant. And Soapy easily got entry in that restaurant, and he sat down at a table and was eating a big dinner. When he had finished, he said that he had no money. "Get busy and call a cop," said Soapy, "and don't keep a gentleman waiting." So Soapy only had told the waiter what he has to do, that he has to call a cop. "No cop for you," said the waiter. He called another waiter. Instead of calling the cop, what the waiter said, "There is no cop for you." And he called another waiter. And what they did, the two waiters threw Soapy upon his left ear on the hard street outside. So they threw Soapy out of the restaurant. He stood up slowly, one part at a time, and beat the dust from his clothes. Prison seemed only a happy dream. The island seemed very far away. And as his 3 attempts were failed, so now Soapy was thinking that the prison was just like a happy dream for him, because easily he could not get arrested. A cop who was standing near laughed and walked away. So these all things observed by a cop. He just laughed and walked away. Soapy started moving again, and so he started move again to the another place. When he stopped, he was near several theaters. In this part of the city, streets are brighter and hearts are more joyful than in other parts. Women and men in rich warm coats moved happily in the winter air. So here he has described the place, that is the near the several theaters. A sudden fear caught Soapy. But at that time, a fear arose in his mind, that is, no cop was going to arrest him, because he has done 3 things and still no cop has arrested him. So he was thinking that now no cop was going to arrest him. Part 3. Then he came to another cop standing in front of a big theater. He thought of something else to try, and now he was, because in his mind he was thinking the different ways to get arrested. And when he saw a cop standing in a front of a big theater. He thought of something else to try. Now he wanted to do something else. He began to shout as if he had too much to drink. His voice was as loud as he could make it. He danced, he cried out. So he started to shout very loudly as a drunkard person. And the cop turned his back to Soapy and said to a man standing near him, but still the cop had not arrested him. And the reason the cop was given to a man, it's one of those college boys. He won't hurt anything. We have orders to let them shout. And the cop told that he considered Soapy as a college students, and the college students are allowed to shout because they don't hurt anyone or they will not do any crime. So they are free, means they have the orders that they are not going to arrest the college students. Soapy was quiet. Was no cop going to touch him? He began to think of the island as if it were as far away as a star. And now, earlier, the island was getting into that island was very easy. Now, afterwards, it had become as a happy dream. And now, Soapy was thinking that it's far away like a star, as star is very far from us. So now the island is like a star for him. He pulled his thin coat around him. The wind was very cold and he tried to warm himself. Then he saw a man in a shop buying a newspaper. The man's umbrella stood beside the door. Soapy stepped inside the shop, took the umbrella and walked slowly away. So what he did now, he just stolen that umbrella and he walked slowly. The man followed him quickly. The man whose umbrella was, he followed him quickly. My umbrella, he said, and he told to Soapy, this is my umbrella. Oh, is it? Said Soapy. Why don't you call a cop? And the man, when he asked that this is my umbrella, oh, Soapy said, oh, is it your? So why don't you call a cop? You should have called. I took it, your umbrella. Why don't you call a cop? There is one standing at the corner, and Soapy only had shown him. See, there is one cop standing. You can call the cop. The man walked more slowly. Soapy did the same, and the man, he was walking little bit slowly. Soapy also did the same, but he had a feeling that he was going to fail again. The cop looked at the two men, and inside his mind, the fear was going on that this time also he is going to be fail. The cop, he was looking at both of the men. I, said the umbrella man, that is, you know how these things happen. If that's your umbrella, I'm very sorry. I found it this morning in a restaurant. If you say it's yours, I hope you will. And the man whose umbrella Soapy has stolen, what he told to Soapy, that is, you know how these things happen. If that is you, means the man also has taken the umbrella by mistake of someone else from a restaurant, and he thought that the Soapy is the real owner of the umbrella. And so he said, if you say it's yours, I hope you will. And the man, he readily given the umbrella to Soapy instead of calling the cop. It's mine, cried Soapy with anger in his voice. And Soapy, it's mine, because he failed in that attempt also. The umbrella man hurried away. The cop helped a lady across the street. Soapy walked east. He threw the umbrella as far as he could throw it. He talked to himself about cops and what he thought of them. Because he wished to be arrested, they seemed to believe he was like a king who could do no wrong. See, this is the irony of the situation. Soapy was trying very hard to get arrested. He was doing wrong things one after another. But the cops were not arresting him. And so he was saying, might be the cops, they are thinking that this person is like a king who could do no wrong. And now Soapy become frustrated. He become very angry, and so in that anger, he threw that umbrella very far. As far as means how much far he can throw that. At last, Soapy came to one of the quiet streets on the side of the city, and when he rushed toward the east, he came to a place which is very quiet. He turned here and began to walk south toward Medicine Square, and again he started Medicine Square. That was the place where Soapy used to spend his days and nights on that bench. He was going home. Although home was only a seat in a park, and what is the home of? Which is the home? That is only the bench in the park. That was only the home of Soapy. So he was turning toward that. But at a very quiet corner, Soapy stopped. But while going toward Medicine Square, he stopped at one point. Here was his old childhood home, and there was his old childhood home. Through one window, he could see a soft light shining. That had been his living room. where he had spent many happy, peaceful moments. Sweet music came to Sophie's ears and seemed to hold him there. And that music, that light, the scene of the house, it had stuck Sophie there only. The moon was above, peaceful and bright. There were few people passing. He could hear birds high above him, and the music that came from the room held Soapy there, for he had known it well long ago. In those days, his life contained such things as mothers and flowers and high hopes and friends and clean thoughts and clean clothes. So when Soapy he saw his childhood home and the music which was coming from that particular house, it has brought a certain change in his life, in his thinking, and he revives, means he recollect all his olden days, his childhood days, where he was happy with his mother. His childhood was very peaceful life and with good things. So he remembered all that thing, and it brought a sudden change in his thinking and in his behavior. There was a sudden and wonderful change in his soul. He saw with sick fear how he had fallen. He saw his worthless days, his wrong desires, his dead hopes, the lost power of his mind. And also, in a moment, his heart answered this change in his soul. He would fight to change his life. He would pull himself up out of the mud. He would make a man himself once again. So, all these past memories, his the memories of his childhood suddenly change his outlook towards his life. And now, what Sophie has decided? Sophie was thinking his past days, that how he was doing, how wrong things he was doing, and he realized that what he has to do, he had wasted most of his time in the wrong desires, his dead hopes, and lost power of mind. So, all these revived that when Soapy decided to fight and change his life, he would again find purpose in life. He decided to find work next day. And so Soapy thought that what wrong things I was doing in my life. And in a moment, he decided, his heart answered him that now what you have to do, instead of doing the wrong things, you have to fight to change your life. And for that reason, what he is going to do? There was time he was young enough. He would find his old purpose in life and follow it. That sweet music had changed him. Tomorrow he would find a work. A man had once offered him a job. He would find that man tomorrow. He would be somebody in the world. He would. Soapy felt a hand on his arm. He looked quickly around into the broad face of a cop. And Soapy has decided his mind that tomorrow he is going to search a job for himself. And he remembered that once a man had offered him a job, and he decided that from tomorrow onwards he will go to the man, find a job, and will live a decent life, a peaceful life where he will earn some money and live his life in a good way, or he will do the things honestly. But at that moment, Soapy felt a hand on his arm. He looked quickly around into the broad face of a cop. "What are you doing hanging around here?" asked the cop. And the cop asked him the question that, "What are you doing this much midnight?" "Nothing," said Soapy. And Soapy said, "Nothing, I'm not doing anything." "You think I believe that?" And the cop said, "You think that I believe on you?" Full of his new strength, Soapy began to argue. And it is not wise to argue with a New York cop. "Come along," said the cop. And the cop, he thought that Soapy, as he was moving at the midnight there, it means he had came there with the intention of robbing or stealing something. And so the cop had arrested. "Come along, 3 months prison on Blackwell's Island," said the judge to Soapy next morning. And next morning, the punishment was given to Soapy. That was 3 months on the Blackwell Island, means into the prison, which was his first expectation. But at the end, when he changed his mind and wanted to find something good in his life, this is the irony of the situation. Earlier, he was expecting to get arrested, and opposite of that was happening. He was not getting arrested. Whatever he was doing, the policemen, they were not considering him as the person who had means who broke the laws. But at the last moment, when he was trying to find something in his life, At that time, the cop has arrested. Now, this is the irony of situation. What we are going to understand from this? See, in our life also, there are so many things happening, and definitely some things we have not expected, and suddenly that happen in our life. So we must have the ability to deal with such kind of ironical situations also. Hopefully and positively, we have to deal with the situations, because every time life is not smooth, that whatever we are expecting, that is only going to happen in our life. Completely opposite of that also can happen, and at that time we must have the courage to face that situations. So this thing we have to learn in the story. I hope you all have understood the story, and you will be able to solve the exercise of the lesson. Thank you.